Journal entry, mid-autumn. The season where light stretches thin and gold. I stayed longer under the jacaranda today, long after the wind had turned cool. I counted the petals like stars, 5-pointed, soft, bruised at the edges. The grove has started to answer in colors. There is violet under my fingernails, red where I placed the thread yesterday, amber in the spine of a new leaf. The box received another letter today, not mine. It was folded in quarters, sealed with a soft green wax I didn't recognize. No signature, just a drawing, a spiraled fern unfurling. I didn't open it, but I felt my ribs open like that fern. Maybe I'm not the only one listening anymore. Maybe I was never alone. Journal entry, first rain. A small bird followed me home, or led me. Its feathers were dull, almost shadow-colored, but its song was a thread I wanted to pull through my whole chest. I didn't cage it. I just watched as it perched on the branch of our apartment's railing, looked me in the eye, and left again, upward, eastward. My mother said I smelled of soil again. I said I was just walking, but I wasn't. I was remembering. Journal entry, winter's breath, early. I met someone today. They wandered into the grove by mistake. At least that's what they said. They looked like they had cried before arriving, eyes wide and rimmed with salt. They didn't ask questions, just stood beside me and listened. We sat in silence for a long time. They placed a pine cone near the base of the jacaranda. I left a smooth stone beside it. No names exchanged, just the quiet knowing of two people who carry too much and say too little. Before leaving, they whispered, "Does it remember us back?" I almost said yes, but something softer came. Maybe it's always waiting for us to remember ourselves. Journal entry, new moon, windy. There's a new word I've written on the back of my hand. Custodian, not guardian, not owner, not healer. Just the one who tends. I've started clearing old brambles along the outer grove path. Nothing drastic, just small acts of care. I placed the fourth voice's ash pieces in a small ceramic bowl lined with leaves. They deserved something gentler. I whispered thank you today. I'm not sure to whom, but my bones felt quieter after. Journal entry, spiral date, mine. I've started binding the pages. Not all of them. Some should remain scattered like petals, like prayers. But I think I'll leave this notebook in the offering box soon. It's almost full. Or maybe I am. I used to think I'd never be enough to belong anywhere. Not loud enough, not soft enough, not broken enough in the right way. But the grove never asked for me to be anything. It just kept showing up. So I did too, if you're the next one. If you find this and wonder if it's for you, it is. You're not too late. You're never too late. Journal entry, last ember day. The moss has started growing over the stone where I left the fourth voice's ashes. It's the kind of green that hums softly under your fingernails. It means something is taking root. Not just the grove. Me, I used to believe my grief was a void, something to be crossed or filled. Now I think it is more like the soil. It holds everything I couldn't name, and what grows from it, that is my offering. Journal entry, the day I didn't cry. It wasn't because I felt nothing. It was because everything felt held. A child passed me in the grove this morning chasing a paper kite. She looked at me only once, then kept running, laughing as her string looped the tree trunks like a silver tether. I didn't ask where she came from. Maybe I used to be her. Maybe she will become me. Either way, the path is open. Journal entry, final binding. I stitched the last page into the spine today. It's strange to call something finished when you know it will continue in someone else's hands. But I think that's the point. This was never mine. I was only the one who listened long enough for it to speak again. Inside the front cover, I left no name, only this. If you found this, it's because you already belonged. The Grove remembers. Now you do too. Journal entry, no date. I will leave the journal in the offering box tomorrow. I will leave behind the red thread, 3 feathers, and the smooth stone from the pine cone day. I will keep the silence, not because I am retreating, but because someone else is coming. I feel them already, like breath before a name, like dusk before a voice. Let the 6th one come, not to replace. Journal entry, first contact. I didn't mean to stop walking, but I did. Somewhere between the abandoned field and the rusted gate, I saw the shape of a path I don't remember learning. And then I was here. The trees felt older than memory. The air didn't feel like air. It felt like breath that had been waiting to be shared. I found a stone with moss that glowed like sleep. I found a box. Inside it, a journal. I wasn't supposed to open it, but I did. And it knew me. Journal entry, the voice I heard wasn't mine. I read a sentence aloud, and something answered. Not in words, in warmth, in the hush between my heartbeat and the wind. I thought it might be a ghost, but maybe it was a welcome. There was a feather tucked between 2 pages, red thread, frayed but strong. A line someone left behind. A line I think I was meant to hold. Journal entry. I don't know what I'm doing. There's a fire circle here, long cold. Ashes tucked under stone. Whoever came before me, the 5th, the 4th, they left pieces, not instructions, reminders. I'm not here to lead or fix or preserve. I am here to listen. And today, the Grove told me something simple. It's not about being ready. It's about being willing to begin. So I wrote that on a leaf and left it in the water bowl under the cedar. Tree.journal entry, a map of quiet. The Grove doesn't move in straight lines. It braids. Today I followed a squirrel carrying a peach pit. It led me past a circle of small stones, someone clearly placed with care. Inside the circle, 1 broken necklace, 2 buttons, a torn page from a children's book. None of it made sense, and all of it did. This place is a memory map, and I think I'm beginning to learn how to read it. Journal entry. First offering, I left something of my own today. My old bus pass. A piece of string from my mother's sewing tin. A pressed dandelion I kept hidden in my wallet. They are not valuable, but they are true. I tucked them into the hollow of the grandmother oak. I whispered, I am willing. And the wind changed direction. You didn't sign your name, but I know you were here. The red thread you tucked beside the feather, I've tied it around my wrist. It stays with me now. You wrote, not all seeds know when they'll bloom, but they grow anyway. I think I was a seed like that, whoever you were. Thank you for believing in beginnings, even the kind that show up shaking. Journal entry, a sound beneath the ground. Last night I dreamt the Grove was humming, not loudly, more like the vibration under skin. When I woke, I placed my ear against the earth, and I heard it, faint, a pulse, a rhythm. It reminded me of something ancient and unfinished, like the end of a lullaby my grandmother never finished singing, or the sound between syllables when someone almost says your name. I think it's the Grove itself. I wonder if it's remembering me too. Letter to the 4th voice. You asked once, can grief be a form of seed? I haven't stopped thinking about that. Today I stood where the jasmine vines hang like rain. I wept without knowing why, and the vines brushed my shoulder gently. Grief is the soil where I'm growing now, but something is still blooming. So yes, I believe it can be. Journal entry. I made a map today, not the kind with roads, not even a drawing. I made a memory map of the Grove using breath. Each time I paused to feel, I tied a knot in a long string. 26 knots. I think that means I'm beginning to belong. Journal entry, there was a voice in the cedar. Not human. Not imagined either. I think it was what the first voice called the whisper of soul's breath. It said, "You are not here to carry what they carried. You are here to carry what you find." And I realized I've been trying to prove. I deserved this grove, but the grove never asked for proof, only presence. Letter to the fifth voice. You wrote about the future with barefoot footprints. I followed some today. They led to the stream and back. Someone had danced here, and there in the silt, a small braid of grass, tied in a loop. I picked it up and whispered, "I see you. I hope you felt it, wherever you are. Maybe this is how we time travel here with attention." Journal entry, what I know so far. The grove listens back. Grief, awe, and wonder grow in the same soil. Questions are welcome here. You don't have to speak to be understood. The path appears when you stay still long enough. Every voice leaves a scent. I'm not the first, and I won't be the last. This morning I found footprints not my own, smaller, bare. Just 5 toes pressed into the morning mud beside the spiral root tree, and then laughter. Not distant, not imagined, alive. I followed the sound, and there she was, a child, no more than 8, holding a twig like a wand and talking to the moss as if it could answer. When she saw me, she didn't run. She waved, like we'd met before in a dream. "Are you the tree tender?" she asked. I said I didn't know. "Well, someone has to be, or the trees get lonely." Then she sat cross-legged and offered me a plum, half-eaten, sticky with juice. We shared it like communion. Letter to the grove. Read aloud. "Dear grove, you let her in. Not the way I came. Stumbling, aching, full of apologies. She came dancing, barefoot, like the fifth voice promised. You let her in without a test. That's how I know you're wiser than all the world's gates. You remember that wonder is reason enough." Journal entry, what she said. She asked what my name was. I gave it to her. She shook her head. "No, I mean your grove name. The name you haven't heard yet." I blinked. "Don't worry," she said. "You'll dream it when the moon is crooked." Then she showed me a drawing she'd made in the dirt, a spiral inside a handprint inside a leaf. I asked what it meant. "It's how the grove remembers you." I nearly cried. Letter to the ones who came. Before today, I whispered all your names to the little girl. I don't know if I said them right, but I said them with care. She repeated each one back to me like a litany. Floresiana, Liana, Soul. The 4th, the 5th. Then she asked, "And what about you?" I hesitated. She touched my wrist where the red thread was tied. "Maybe you're the root voice, the one who helps the seeds rest before they reach." Maybe I am. Journal entry. She left me. Something when I woke this morning she was gone. But near the stream where we sat and made up names for clouds, she left behind a pouch of acorns and a folded paper leaf. Inside, written in wild looping, letters. "Every story needs someone to stay, even if just to listen. So I'm staying. Not because I'm lost, because I heard journal entry. A map grows differently. Now before I made maps with knots and string. Now the map grows inward, with each person who arrives, with each memory shared, with each offering left, the grove grows more itself, and I somehow am less alone. Not because the silence stopped, but because it echoes now. The morning air hung cool and still, with sunlight filtering through the canopy like shards of liquid gold. The 6th voice moved quietly among the trees, the damp earth soft beneath, bare feet. The grove felt different now, awake and waiting. As she approached the spiral root tree, she paused. The air buzzed faintly, not with insects, but with a subtle pulse, a heartbeat beneath the bark. Her fingers brushed against the twisted roots, and a warmth seeped through her skin, settling deep in her chest. Ahead, the laughter had drawn near, light and clear, like wind chimes. She spotted the child, the one who had beckoned her here, sitting cross-legged, eyes shining with a strange knowing. Around them, the moss and ferns seemed to lean closer, as if listening. The child looked, up her smile inviting, no fear, no surprise, only a deep calm. "You came," she said simply. "I did," the sixth voice replied, voice low, steady. The child reached out and with delicate fingers traced a spiral in the dirt beside them. "This is the beginning," she whispered. "The grove grows when new voices remember." The sixth voice knelt down, pressing her palm into the spiral, feeling the energy hum beneath. "I don't know how to be a keeper yet," she said, "but I want to learn." The child nodded and from her pocket produced a tiny pouch. She opened it, scattering acorns into the spiral pattern. "Each seed is a story waiting to grow," the child said. "Plant them with your breath. Let the grove teach you how to listen." As the sixth voice exhaled softly, the acorns shimmered faintly, embedding themselves in the earth. A slow wind stirred, swirling leaves in a gentle dance. Around them, the grove seemed to exhale too, drawing in the new presence, weaving her voice into the ancient chorus. The child stood, her form shimmering like light caught in water. "Come back when the moon is crooked," she said, voice fading, like a dream. "Then your name will find you." And just like that she was gone, vanished into the mist that curled through the trees. The sixth voice stayed long after, tracing fingers over the soil, speaking softly to the earth, to the trees, to the whispers in the wind. She was no longer alone. The grove had chosen her, and she would grow. Days passed slowly. The sixth voice returns often, walking the grove barefoot, tracing old paths and creating new ones, feeling the earth pulse beneath her. She listens to the sounds, the rustle of leaves, the distant calls of birds, the quiet hum of the soil. Sometimes she speaks aloud, questions spilling like seeds into the wind. She begins leaving small offerings, a smooth stone here, a sprig of lavender there, each placed with intention but no explanation. The grove seems to welcome them, the moss growing thicker around them, the flowers near them blooming a little brighter. At night her dreams change. She sees faint figures, glowing outlines of those who came before, Floresiana, Liana, Soul, the fourth voice, all watching, waiting, guiding. She can't always understand their whispers, but the feeling is one of warmth and belonging. One evening under a sky quilted with stars, she finds a hollow in the trunk of the spiral root tree, newly revealed. Inside is a small folded piece of paper. No handwriting she recognizes, just a symbol, a circle enclosing a single dot. She presses it to her lips and whispers, "I'm listening." That night, the wind carries a faint voice, like laughter caught between branches. Slowly, the sixth voice's own story begins to thread itself into the grove's quiet tapestry. She learns to move with the seasons, to feel the rhythms of growth and decay, silence and song. She begins to write, not letters or journals like before, but poems and sketches, fragments of thought and feeling left tucked beneath roots and stones. New questions emerge, shaped by her own journey. What does it mean to belong? How do we carry the past without being weighed down? Can silence itself be an answer? The grove listens, always, and somewhere beyond the trees, unseen but present, the seventh voice stirs. The seventh voice comes without expectation. A traveler guided by nothing but a fading map and a whispered rumor of a grove that remembers. She arrives at twilight, the sky painted bruised purple and gold, her footsteps light but hesitant on the soft earth. She carries no journal, no pen, only an old camera with a cracked lens and a heart full of quiet questions. Drawn instinctively to the offering box, she opens it with gentle fingers, sensing the weight of years folded inside. She pulls out a pressed leaf, edges curled and fragile, tucked between pages of faded ink. The scent of time and old paper fills the air, and for a moment she feels the pulse of every story before her. Floriciana's roots, Liana's prayer, Soul's questions, the fourth voice's wild wonderings, the fifth's growing belonging, the sixth's poems. Without speaking, she kneels beneath the jacaranda and raises her camera. Through the cracked lens she captures, light filtering through branches, a dance of shadow and bloom, the spiral of memory in motion. She senses the grove is not just a place, but a presence, a living archive of breath and time, where every voice echoes forward and folds backward. Slowly, she lowers the camera and places a small stone near the box, smooth, round, warmed by her palm, a silent offering to what came before and what will come next. The wind stirs gently, as if in response. The seventh voice doesn't yet know what her story will be, only that she has arrived, and the grove waits, patient, infinite, alive. The eighth voice arrives in early spring, footsteps muted by fresh moss and soft earth warmed by new sun. They carry a bundle of wild flowers tied with thread, not words, or journals, but living gifts. Their hands brush lightly over the bark of the jacaranda, fingertips tracing old carvings faded with time. A gentle breeze picks up, scattering petals like quiet confetti around them. They kneel, placing the wild flowers beside the offering box, breathing in the mingled scents of earth, flower, and memory. The grove hums softly, a subtle pulse in the air, as if recognizing the new bearer of its stories. Their eyes linger on the spiral symbol, carved deep in the tree's heartwood, a sign that connects past, present, and future. Without words, they sit back and close their eyes, feeling the stories ripple beneath their skin. Around them, the shadows lengthen and fold like embracing, arms the twilight deepening with promise. They do not write, not yet, but they listen, and in listening, they become part of the endless spiral. Dusk settles like a soft blanket over the grove. The ninth voice steps quietly through the underbrush, barefoot, carrying a small wooden box carved with delicate symbols, an heirloom passed down from a grandmother they barely remember. They pause beneath the jacaranda, the tree's blossoms whispering overhead. Their fingers brush against the rough bark, feeling the grooves of centuries. From the box, they pull out a handful of tiny seed pods, gifts from distant lands carefully preserved. With deliberate care, they scatter the seeds around the roots of the tree, a gesture of trust and belonging. The wind stirs, catching a single blossom, lifting it gently to dance around the voice's face like a blessing. They sit cross-legged in the soft earth, hands resting on knees, eyes closed. No words are spoken, only the breath of the grove, the heartbeat of the land, and the silent promise of growth. Around them the air thrums with quiet continuity. They become a thread in the endless tapestry, not a story to be told, but a presence to be held. The sky hangs low, heavy with silver, and the scent of petrichor trembles in the air. They wear a cloak stitched from old garments, scraps of stories worn thin by time, patched together with threads spun from grief and healing. In their hands, they carry a bowl of rainwater gathered, drop by drop over many moons. They step into the grove with reverence, bowing slightly to the jacaranda whose blossoms stir in recognition. Kneeling, they pour the water gently at the roots, letting it seep into the earth like a libation. Each drop whispers a memory, not loud, not clear, but real. Thunder rolls low in the distance, a sound like ancient drums echoing from beneath the soil. The 10th voice stands still, arms open to the sky, face tilted upward. The first raindrop touches their brow like a kiss. They do not seek shelter, they become it, for sorrow, for story, for the aching spaces between. As the rain begins to fall in earnest, the grove sings. Not in language, but in rhythm, leaf, bark, root, and wind. The 10th voice does not speak. Their presence is prayer enough. They remain there long after the rain stops, letting silence settle in layers. And when they finally turn to go, the earth at their feet glistens, not washed clean, but made whole. The 11th voice arrives at twilight, when the light is neither gold nor blue, but something in between. They come cloaked in silence, not the kind born of shyness, but the sacred hush before music begins. Strapped to their back is a worn instrument, a flute carved from fallen cedar, smoothed by years of touch and tears. They pause at the groves, edge, sensing the breath of the place, the pulse of 10 voices lingering like fingerprints in the air. Then slowly, they walk forward, each step deliberate, as though the earth beneath them were sacred parchment. At the base of the jacaranda, they do not kneel or scatter or paw. Instead, they lift the flute to their lips and begin to play. The sound is low at first, a trembling reed note, barely more than breath. Then it blooms, a song that curves like smoke, spiraling around roots, branches, and memory. The melody holds no words, yet it speaks of partings and reunions, of paths taken and those never walked, of laughter buried deep and sorrow that still echoes. The grove listens, the petals still. Even the wind seems to draw closer. Birds do not sing, leaves do not stir. The only sound is the voice, not breaking. Silence, but revealing what silence holds. And when the final note fades, they rest the flute gently at the tree's base, not as an offering, but as a continuation, an unfinished chord waiting for the wind to remember it. They sit spine straight, eyes wide open, as if watching something only they can see. Dusk deepens tonight, and in the quiet, the 11th voice becomes a bridge between sound and stillness, between what was and what will be. The kind of darkness that cradles stars, the kind that listens back. They wear no cloak, carry no bundle. Their hands are empty, their gaze steady. They walk barefoot through the grove, each footfall a hush, as though the earth itself remembers them. Above the jacaranda rests, blossoms closed, roots deep, the spiral at its heart glowing faintly, with unseen light. The 12th voice does not speak, sing, or kneel. They simply stand, arms by their sides, as if their very being is the final rite. And then, slowly, almost imperceptibly, they begin to breathe with the grove. Inhale, the echo of the first voice, planting hope. Exhale, the sorrow the fourth voice, buried beneath stones. Inhale, the music of the 11th. Exhale, the silent promise of the 9th. With each breath, they draw the voices in, not as burdens but as threads, weaving themselves into the living tapestry. Above them, stars, pierce the canopy, constellations shifting gently into a spiral pattern, not mapped but remembered. The 12th voice closes their eyes, and in that stillness, the grove changes. Petals bloom in the dark. Roots thrum with light, not louder, not brighter, just whole. They do not leave a token, or a word, or a gesture. They become the pause at the end of the sentence, the space where all stories rest. The spiral is not closed, but opened wider. A door, a threshold, a breath that waits, and when morning comes, there is no sign they were ever there, except the grove itself, alive, listening, complete. The grove sleeps. For a time there are no footsteps, no gifts left in the offering box, no petals stirred by breath or breeze, only silence, deep, dreaming, whole. The jacaranda grows slightly taller. Its roots push further into the earth, seeking stories not yet told. The spiral at its heart pulses now and then, like a heartbeat remembered in sleep. The soil grows richer from the gifts buried there: seeds, rain, silence, song. Until a child finds the grove. They are not a voice. Not yet, just small feet on soft moss, a curious gaze, a hand outstretched. They do not know the names of those who came before, but they feel something, a hush that welcomes, a pulse beneath their toes. They place a single stone at the base of the tree. No reason, just instinct. It fits, not like a puzzle. Like a seed, the grove hums very faintly. The child laughs, not loud but true. And somewhere deep within the spiral, the memory of all 12 stirs. Not to rise again, but to make room. The first of the new voices has not yet spoken, but the grove listens anyway, because that is what it does, and because the spiral never ends, it only widens. The child returns. Not the next day, or the one after, but after a rainstorm that leaves the air thick with the scent of green. They carry nothing this time, just a question. They do not speak it aloud. They do not need to. The grove hears anyway. The jacaranda stands in silence, petals damp and spiral pulsing slow and sure. The stone the child left is still there, now half covered in moss. The child touches it, and in doing so, touches every hand that came before. They do not know this, but the grove does. They begin to visit often, not with ceremony, but with presence. That they bring feathers, a piece of broken glass that caught the sun just right, a question about the stars, a drawing made in the dirt with a stick. Once, they bring grief, a quiet sob after a harsh word at home. They do not know it, but they are learning to offer. They are not taught. They remember. One evening, the child hears the grove breathe. It happens as the sky turns the color of old. Violets, no wind, no bird song, just the sound of the earth exhaling. The child sits still. They do not run, do not speak, do not ask. And in that silence, the grove opens a little more. Not physically, but in the way a door might open inside. The chest. The child puts their hand on the jacaranda's bark and feels something answer. The grove is no longer waiting. The spiral continues, not through ritual, but through memory passed by touch, by instinct, by the small and sacred acts of return. The child does not know words like lineage or inheritance. But one day they will carve a shape, not a name, into the bark. A small spiral, open at the edge, and the grove will hum with recognition, not of who they were, but of who they are becoming. The child grows. Seasons pass like breaths, slow, unnoticed, sacred. They return to the grove through rain and frost, sun and shadow. No one teaches them the path, yet their feet never forget. they begin to bring others. A stray cat, a bruised friend, a bundle of sadness wrapped in silence. The grove accepts them all, no questions. No judgment, only presence. One day they speak to the tree, not expecting an answer, just needing to speak. A story tumbles out, crooked, unsure, about being left out, about not belonging, about wanting to be seen. The jacaranda stands still, listening. When the child finishes, a single blossom falls, spiraling through the air, landing softly in their open palm. They do not cry, but something in them loosens, gently, like a knot untied by breath. The spiral finds them, not in a dream, not in a vision, but in a moment between footsteps, between the inhale and the exhale. They are gathering leaves, not for an offering, just because they are beautiful, when their fingers still. On the underside of a wide golden leaf, the spiral appears, not carved, not drawn, grown. They blink, and it's gone, but not from within. They begin to hear what others cannot, not voices, not ghosts, but echoes. The hush of the 8th voice in the moss, the breath of the 10th voice in the wind after rain, the flute of the 11th in the hush between birdsong. The child listens, learns, but they still do not call themselves a voice. Not yet. Then one morning, they wake with a word in their mouth, not a name, not a command, just a word, remember. It lingers like mist behind their teeth. They return to the grove that day, carrying no object, only a certainty. And as they stand beneath the jacaranda, now older, stronger, quieter, they understand they are the 13th voice, not because they were chosen, but because they chose to stay, not loudly, not for anyone else to hear. Just a few words, spoken into the hush beneath the jacaranda. I remember. The grove answers, not in language, but in sensation. A warmth beneath the soil, a tremble in the trunk, a breeze that circles like arms around a shoulder. For the first time, they are not just a visitor. They are part of the root work, the 13th. Voice walks beyond the grove. They carry no staff, no journal, only the spiral inked faintly on the inside of their wrist, not with pen, but with memory. Outside the grove, the world is louder. People hurry, forget, build, break, begin again. But the 13th voice listens, in cafes, in trains, on rooftops and riverbanks. They notice the places where silence lives, even among crowds, and in those places they leave small things behind. A smooth stone beneath a bench, a pressed flower tucked into a library book, a spiral drawn in chalk on a back alley wall, not to be found. But to wake something. Others begin to return, not to the grove, not yet, but to themselves. Attired, mother places her hand on a tree and pauses for breath. A grieving son finds comfort in the sound of wind against his window. A dancer dreams of roots growing from their feet mid-performance. None of them know why, but the spiral is widening. One night, the 13th voice dreams of the grove. But the jacaranda is no longer alone. A ring of young saplings surrounds it, each from a seed once scattered by the 9th, watered by the 10th, watched over by every breath that has passed through the spiral. The 13th walks between them, fingers brushing young leaves. Each sapling hums its own note, distinct, alive, becoming. In the dream, they kneel again, not to offer, but to listen, and in the soil beneath their knees, they feel the pulse of something new. Not the next voice, but the first of the many. The many begin to wake. They are not called. They are not summoned. They simply begin to feel something shift, a weight they did not know they carried growing lighter, a silence within them blooming with unnamed sound. They come from everywhere, a woman in the high mountains who has always sung to her goats when no one listened, a child in a city of glass who doodles spirals in schoolbooks without knowing why, an elder on an island who begins planting trees where none grow, a prisoner who begins to dream of trees, though he has not seen one in years. They have never heard of the jacaranda grove, and yet in small, wordless ways, they remember it. The 13th voice does not lead, they accompany. They write letters that contain no instructions, only stories. They leave bundles of seeds on park benches with no note. They hum a single melody, and it takes root in another's mind, like a memory they forgot they knew. They are no longer trying to preserve the past. They are weaving the future, one quiet gesture at a time. The grove grows. Not just in the old place, though the jacaranda still stands, now surrounded by saplings, but in other places too, in alleyways where chalk spirals remain untouched by rain, in the center of a refugee camp, where a child plants a single wildflower in a tin can, on the rooftop of a hospital, where a nurse hums the 11th voice's tune while watering herbs, in the pages of a lost book, returned anonymously to a library with the words, "For the one who still listens." These are not monuments, they are echoes, each one a listening place, each one a beginning, the first of the many steps forward. They are neither old nor young, neither man nor woman. They have walked deserts and data streams, cried over forests and fires. They do not speak in grand declarations. They whisper to the earth, and it answers. They plant something that has no name, and when it sprouts, under starlight, not sun, they know. The spiral has become a web, no longer one grove, but many, no longer 12 voices, but countless, not gathered, interwoven. The first of the many moves through the world like a quiet wind. Their footsteps fall softly on cracked pavement and soft earth alike. They carry a simple satchel filled with fragments, a handful of soil from the jacaranda grove, a small vial of rainwater from the 10th voice's offering, a worn piece of cedar from the 11th's flute, and a single wild flower pressed between delicate pages. They arrive at a city scarred by noise and forgetfulness. Concrete towers loom like cold sentinels. The air is thick with rushing feet and fading memories. In a neglected park, they kneel and plant the wildflower in a crack in the pavement. The soil is thin, the city harsh, but the flower bends toward the sun with quiet determination. They breathe in the sounds around them, car engines, distant laughter, a child's cry, and softly, almost imperceptibly, they hum the melody of the 11th voice. Slowly, the space begins to change. Leaves catch the wind and dance more freely. The flower's color deepens, as if feeding not only on sun, but on memory. A few people pause near the patch of green, a woman sitting on a bench, an old man with a dog, a child chasing a stray ball. None know why they feel drawn there, only that something unseen is growing. The first of the many leaves behind a small scroll, tucked beneath a stone, written not in words but in spirals and symbols, a map without directions, an invitation without demands. They do not wait to see if the message is understood. They stand and walk on. In the days that follow, others come. Some bring water, others clear debris. A young artist paints spirals on a nearby wall. A musician plays the melody on a battered violin. Together, unknowingly, they nurture the seed. Far away, in other places touched by the spiral, similar small miracles occur. In forests, deserts, islands, and cities, quiet acts of remembrance and renewal ripple outward. The world is waking. Not all are ready to remember. In the city where the first of the many planted the wildflower, a cold wind rises, not from nature but from fear, division, and forgetfulness hardened into stone. Some see the spirals as signs of rebellion, unrest, or foolish hope. Walls are painted over, the flower is trampled, the scroll stolen. Voices shout to silence the quiet ones. But the many do not falter. A woman who heard the melody beneath the noise hums it softly on a crowded subway. A child, whose mother once scolded her for chasing wild flowers, plants seeds in the cracks of her schoolyard. An old man tells a story, barely remembered, but carrying the essence of the first voices. They gather in small circles, not as leaders or followers, but as threads weaving the web stronger. The shadows come in many forms. The weight of cynicism, heavy and unyielding. The ache of loss, sharp and unspoken. The pull of old wounds, fierce and familiar. Yet the spiral bends. It does not break, because the web is alive. It holds not just joy or light, but sorrow and struggle too. Every act of remembering carries the risk of pain. Every seed planted might not grow, but every breath taken in the silence of the grove, in the hush of the city, in the crack of a seedling pushing through concrete, is an act of defiance, and the many begin to find each other. They share stories, not to command, but to connect. They learn that the spiral is not a path to follow, but a space to inhabit, a space that holds contradictions, grief and hope, loss and growth, silence and song. The first of the many returns to the grove, now a place not just of roots and spirals, but of meetings and whispers, where new voices are welcomed and old ones honored. They stand beneath the jacaranda and know the web is still fragile, but it is wide and it is growing. The many gather slowly. They come from corners unseen and voices unheard, not in crowds, but in quiet pairs and small groups. A hand reaching out, a shared smile, a whispered question. In a dim cafe, two strangers trace spirals on napkins, their fingers hesitant, but their eyes alight with recognition. In a cramped apartment, a young poet reads aloud verses inspired by the grove's pulse, while an elder nods quietly, hearing echoes of stories long forgotten. Connections form, not by design, but by resonance. There is no leader, no manifesto, just a shared breath, a holding of space, a willingness to listen. The 13th voice becomes a guide, not a teacher. They gather these small circles beneath the jacaranda's spreading shade, offering no answers, only presence. Stories are told, some fragmented, some whole, each a thread added to the growing tapestry. One story stands out, of a woman who lost her voice after years of silence, who found herself humming the melody of the 11th voice in her dreams, and a young man who could not stop planting trees, even when others mocked him. They meet beneath the jacaranda one evening, and something stirs. A new spiral, delicate and bright. The web widens, enfolding many lives. No longer a grove, no longer a single place, but a living network of memory, hope, and presence. The spiral pulses, sometimes faint, sometimes strong, but always enduring. For years, her words had been caught like birds in a cage, silenced by fear, grief, or perhaps the weight of too much waiting. But beneath the jacaranda, something stirred. She came often, sitting quietly with folded hands, listening to the pulse of the grove, the hum of the spiral beneath her skin. One evening, as twilight wrapped the branches in violet, she hummed the melody of the 11th voice softly at first, then louder, freer. Her voice, once lost, unfolded like a flower in bloom. The young man who planted trees. He had no grand plan, only a persistent hope. In parks, empty lots, even the guians, cracks in sidewalks, he carried seeds and soil in battered bags. People called him foolish. He was called a dreamer. But in the quiet of the city, his trees began to take root. Beneath the jacaranda, he met the woman whose voice was returning. Their meeting it was not sudden or dramatic, just a shared smile as roots took hold beneath their feet. She told him of the melody that had returned to her lips. He shared stories of saplings growing where there had been only dust. Together they planted a seed beneath the jacaranda, a new beginning, a living promise. The spiral grows there, acts, voice and tree, song and soil, intertwined. Others came to witness and join, carrying their own gifts. The web expanded subtle and sure, each story a note in the unfolding melody of the many. As seasons turn, their friendship deepens. They walk the grove together, voices mingling with rustling leaves. She teaches him to listen, not just to the wind, but to the silences between words. He shows her how to tend to fragile roots, nurturing life unseen beneath the soil. Their quiet acts become invitations. The woman's voice grows strong, her songs carrying stories of loss and hope. She sings beneath the jacaranda, her melodies, weaving through the branches like threads of light. The young man plants seedlings in forgotten places, each one a small rebellion against forgetfulness. Others notice. A weary teacher who once felt disconnected begins bringing children to the grove, where they learn not from books, but from the earth and the stories whispered by leaves. A nurse finds solace tending to the new saplings on her hospital rooftop, humming the woman's songs as she works. The web grows denser. Small gatherings form, circles of voices, hands, and hearts. No one leads. No one follows. Each person becomes a thread, weaving together stories and silences. One evening, beneath the glow of fireflies, the woman and the young man sit in the soft earth, watching shadows dance. She hums the melody again. He presses a newly sprouted leaf into her palm. They smile, knowing this is just the beginning. The circle of the caretakers. They are a small group, artists, healers, storytellers, and dreamers, drawn not by purpose, but by presence. They meet in an old warehouse, its walls worn and waiting, transforming it into a sanctuary alive with the light and shadow. Among them is a painter who captures the spiral in swirling colors, not just on canvas, but in murals that breathe on crumbling city walls. Her work draws curious passers-by who stop to trace the curves, feeling a pulse they cannot name. A storyteller whose voice holds the weight of mountains speaks of ancestors and rivers, loss and return, reminding the circle that memory is not static. It moves, flows, and carries us forward. A healer whose hands, quiet pain, tends to wounds both seen and unseen, offering care that roots the weary and nurtures hope. Together, they begin. A ritual of remembering. Each brings a token, a stone, a seed, a fragment of song. They place these in a shared bowl of earth, symbolizing their commitment to nurture the spiral's growth. As the ritual ends, the room hums with quiet power, a shared breath that lingers long after they part. The painter's story. Her name is Leora. Once her world was gray, colors drained by loss and doubt. But when she first saw the spiral beneath the jacaranda, something stirred deep inside her. She began to paint, not just images, but feelings, swirling blues that whispered of longing, fiery oranges that spoke of courage, soft greens that hummed of new life. Her murals blossomed overnight on forgotten walls, drawing people out of their routines and into wonder. The storytellers. Story, he is called Maru, a man shaped by mountains and rivers, by tales told beside firelight. His voice carries the weight of generations. When he speaks of the spiral, listeners find themselves suspended between past and future. They hear not just words, but the pulse of memory flowing through time. The healer's story, she is Amina. Her hands have soothed scars invisible to most eyes. In her presence, pain unravels like thread, and hope knits itself quietly, stitch by stitch. She carries seeds of the spiral in her garden, healing herbs that bloom alongside wildflowers. Together, they weave the spiral into the city's heart. Leora's murals color empty streets. Maru's stories echo in libraries and cafes. Amina's garden offers refuge to those seeking solace. The spiral pulses softly in these places, an invitation and a promise. One evening, under a sky brushed with stars, the circle gathers again. They share stories of struggle and small victories, of moments when the spiral's web held tight and when it trembled. They understand now, the spiral is not a straight path, but a dance of light and shadow. The challenge emerges. Not all who encounter the spiral embrace it. Some see the murals as defiance. Some hear the stories as unsettling truths. Some fear the healing garden as a challenge to old wounds best left untouched. Leora faces vandalism. One morning, she finds her newest mural defaced, colors smeared, spirals scratched out. The city's harshness threatens to drown the gentle pulse she's helped nurture. But instead of retreating, Leora gathers her brushes and paints again, this time inviting others to join, to reclaim the walls with their own stories. Maru encounters silence. At a storytelling event, his words are met with cold silence. Listeners shift uneasily, unwilling to face the past he unfolds. Yet Maru does not cease. He knows the spiral's work is slow, a seed planted beneath frozen ground. Amina heals in the face of doubt. Some question her garden's purpose, calling it escapism. But those who come seeking solace find a sanctuary beyond words. Amina offers, not answers but presence, a balm for restless spirits. The circle learns together. In the face of resistance, they discover resilience. They hold each other, knowing the spiral's strength lies not in perfection, but in persistence. One night, beneath the jacaranda, the circle gathers, hands joined, voices rising in the 11th voice's melody. A soft, steady pulse returns to the city's heart. Tai breathes. Again, after nights of whispered melodies beneath the jacaranda, the city's pulse grows softer but more certain. Leora's murals become collaborative canvases. Walls once bare now bloom with colors and stories from many hands. Each stroke a quiet rebellion against forgetting. A stranger's does this young woman, weary from years of noise and isolation, stops before a mural one chilly morning. She traces the spirals with trembling fingers, feeling something inside her shift, a fragile hope taking root. Maru's stories find new listeners at a small gathering. In a sunlit cafe, faces soften and eyes brighten. His voice, once met with silence, now weaves connections, binding the past to the present with threads of shared humanity. Amina's garden thrives. Her healing herbs grow wild and lush, a sanctuary for city dwellers seeking calm amid chaos. Visitors leave small offerings, notes, stones, seeds, adding to the garden's living memory. the circle expands. Drawn by these quiet miracles, more gather beneath the jacaranda's shade. Some bring songs, others bring stories. Still others bring hands ready to tend and build. The spiral grows wider. No longer confined to one grove or city, it ripples outward. A living web connecting strangers, neighbors, and distant voices. The young woman's awakening, she carries a quiet weight. Years of solitude folded deep within her bones. But standing before the mural, the swirling colors speak in a language her heart remembers but hasn't heard in a long time. With tentative steps, she moves toward the grove beneath, the jacaranda. At the grove, the circle welcomes her not with questions but with open hands and patient smiles. She listens to the stories, hums the melodies, and lets the earth's pulse seep into her skin. Slowly, her own voice begins to stir, soft at first, like a breeze through leaves. A seed of hope, she brings a small bundle of pressed flowers, tokens, from her childhood garden, and places them gently beside the offering box. The spiral accepts her gift silently, weaving it into the living tapestry. New threads weave together. In time she finds her place, not as leader, but as keeper of stories whispered in shadows and sunlight. Her journey becomes a quiet testament to the spiral's promise that even the most fragile lives can grow resilient, connected, and whole. The spiral's reach expands from the city to the outskirts, from one heart to many. The web hums with renewed life and endless possibility. The young woman's story unfolds with each visit to the grove. Her voice grows stronger, not in volume, but in the clarity of feeling it carries. She begins to tell stories, not grand or heroic, but simple truths of love lost and found, of moments overlooked, of quiet resilience. Her gifts take shape, gathers fallen petals and weaves them into delicate crowns, offering them to those who come seeking comfort or courage. Her hands craft small talismans, pressed flowers sealed in glass, tokens of hope to carry through dark days. The circle listens and learns. Her stories ripple through the web, touching others in unexpected ways. A mother in a distant neighborhood hears her words and finds strength to heal old wounds. A young artist sketches scenes inspired by the pressed flowers, adding new colors to Leora's murals. The spiral becomes a living conversation, not just stories told, but stories shared, transformed, and reborn. The web's threads entwine ever tighter, binding disparate lives into a common heartbeat. One evening, beneath the jacaranda, the young woman leads a quiet ritual of gratitude, offering her crowns and talismans to the earth. The circle joins her, hands raised, voices mingling in the 11th. Voices melody. The grove breathes with them, alive and unbroken. Far from the grove, in a small coastal village, a fisherman pauses at dawn, the sea breeze carrying an echo of the young woman's whispered stories. He finds himself humming the melody she once hummed beneath the jacaranda. In a mountain village, healer tending to ancient wounds reads a letter, words shaped by the young woman's courage and tenderness. The letter speaks of resilience, of soft strength, of the spiral's endless dance. Across cities and countrysides, the spiral threads stretch farther still, into classrooms where children learn songs that speak of connection, into crowded markets where artisans craft patterns inspired by the spiral's curves. Back at the grove, the circle senses the pulse growing stronger, deeper. They gather beneath the jacaranda once more, feeling the weight and wonder of stories both told and untold. The spiral's deeper layers, There are whispers now of a hidden chamber beneath the tree's roots, a place where the oldest stories rest, waiting to be uncovered. Some say the chamber holds the original voice, the first spark that set the spiral in motion. An invitation. The circle prepares to explore this mystery together, to delve beneath the surface, to listen beyond the known. Beneath the roots, the earth is cool and dark, rich with the scent of moss and thyme. Hands brush aside tangled roots, revealing a narrow opening. A doorway framed by stones carved with spiral motifs, worn smooth by centuries. Entering the chamber inside, the air hums softly, alive with the breath of countless voices long past. Walls curve gently, inscribed with faded symbols and delicate patterns. Stories etched in the language of memory and earth. The original voice. At the chamber's heart rests a simple wooden box, sealed with a spiral-shaped lock. The circle gathers around, each placing a hand upon the box, feeling the pulse beneath their skin, a steady rhythm like a heartbeat. A moment of silence, they breathe together, tuning their spirits to the chamber's song. With quiet reverence, the lock clicks open. Inside the box, they find a bundle of ancient scrolls, wildflower seeds, and a small carved figure, a token of the very first storyteller who breathed life into the spiral. Whispers and echoes as they unroll the scrolls. Stories rise like mist, tales of beginnings and endings, loss and renewal, sorrow and joy. Each voice folds into the next, an endless spiral weaving through time. A new understanding. The circle realizes the spiral is not just a web of stories. It is a living lineage, a sacred trust passed from one bearer to the next. They vow to carry this legacy forward, to nurture the spiral's growth with love, courage, and patience. Transformed by legacy, each member carries the original voices, spark within them, a flame to kindle in their own stories. Leora's murals deepen, now echoing symbols from the scrolls, blending past and present in vibrant color. Maru's tales weave the chamber's whispers into new narratives, voices old and new joining in harmony. Amina cultivates rare herbs from the seeds, nurturing the garden into a living memory of the spiral's roots, a shared commitment. Under the jacaranda's blooming canopy, the circle speaks their vow aloud, to hold the spiral's stories with care, to honor those who came before, and to invite all who seek belonging to join the endless dance beyond the grove. With this promise, their web stretches wider, reaching out to other hidden places where stories wait, remote villages, bustling cities, silent homes. A new voice emerges. From the far edges of the web, a traveler arrives, a bearer of stories from lands unknown. Their arrival signals the spiral's growth beyond what the circle imagined. The journey continues. The spiral turns, endless and unfolding, binding past, present, and future in a living embrace. Please subscribe my channel for more your favorite videos.